In this video, I'm bringing the world's deadliest places into the game. But just visiting them isn't enough. I want to see how truly dangerous they are. That's why I will be using a 10-point scale to rank just how deadly these locations are. A rating of 1 means that you can survive there with no experience or preparation, while a 10 will be instant death, unless you are in very special circumstances. Alright, with that settled, let's kick things off with a place so hot, it will cook you alive. Welcome to Death Valley. Minecraft might have deserts, but none come close to this. Temperatures here can reach an astounding 56.7 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to fry an egg on the ground. But there's a problem. This doesn't feel dangerous at all. I mean, sure, Minecraft deserts do look empty, but standing here, it just feels like any other biome. So I decided to change that. To make Death Valley as death-inducing as the name suggests, I decided to install Scorchfall, a mod that introduces realistic heat mechanics. Now shade and water are no longer optional. They're your only hope for survival. And if you think walking out of Death Valley is an option, let's take a look at the map. This desert is over 225 kilometers long. That's bigger than some small countries. Considering the average human walking speed is 5 kilometers an hour, at that pace, non-stop walking would take at least 25 hours. But here's where things go from bad to impossible. No one can walk that long in this heat. And that's because at these temperatures, sweat evaporates almost instantly. So your body will dehydrate at an extreme rate. If you don't drink at least 6 liters of water per day, you're done. And good luck finding any. This place has no rivers, no lake, and barely any shade. So, what's the alternative? Moving at night when temperatures drop to a still brutal 30 degrees Celsius. But now you're dealing with a new problem: total darkness. No landmarks, no navigation, just miles of shifting sand dunes, making it almost guaranteed that you'll get lost. So the reality is that escaping on foot is not just dangerous, it's nearly impossible. Considering you might actually have a chance to escape alive, Death Valley gets a death rating of 7.9 out of 10. But what if instead of the endless desert, you found yourself in a place of absolute darkness? That's what you can expect if you happen to find yourself in the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth. And to visualize just how deep it is, if you dropped Mount Everest inside, its peak would still be over 2000 meters underwater. At its lowest point, called the Challenger Deep, this trench plunges nearly 11 kilometers below the ocean's surface. And the deeper you go, the heavier the ocean will push on you. At this depth, the pressure reaches 1086 bars. That's over 1000 times the atmospheric pressure that you are feeling right now. To put that in perspective, it would be like having the weight of at least 500 anvils pressing down on your body. Submarines that can reach that point need titanium-reinforced hulls to avoid getting crushed. But pressure isn't your only problem. The first thing you'll notice down here, there is no light. Sunlight never reaches this deep, leaving everything in complete darkness. The only sources of light come from bioluminescent creatures, like the anglerfish, which dangles a glowing lure in front of its mouth to trick prey. But here's the craziest part. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the depths of our own ocean. Only about 20% of the world's oceans have been explored. This means that at these depths there could be species that we've never seen before. All that aside, considering you'd need a titanium-reinforced submarine just to stay here, which I will consider cheating, the Mariana Trench gets a perfect score of 10 in the depth scale. And while the ocean might crush you if you go deep enough, some places on Earth will boil you alive the moment you enter. The Neka Crystal Cave is buried 300 meters underground in Mexico, and at first glance, it looks unreal. Massive crystals that can be over 12 meters long give the cave a surreal feeling. But if you spend more than a few minutes here, it may become your grave. Temperatures inside the Neka cave reach an astounding 58 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than Death Valley. But with one major difference. It's not the heat that makes this place dangerous, it's the humidity. The air is so full of moisture that sweat never evaporates, and that's a massive problem. Because if sweat can't evaporate, instead of releasing heat, your body just keeps absorbing it. Without a special suit, you wouldn't last more than 10 minutes before passing out. But why is this cave so hot? That's because it sits right above a magma chamber. That also explains the extreme temperature. If you ask me, this might just be one of the most beautiful places on Earth, but also one of the deadliest. And that's why I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 on the death rating. Now, let's talk about a place where humans are the one responsible for its deadliness. What was supposed to be a routine safety check took a dark turn in just a few moments. An unexpected drop of power caused Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant to explode, blasting radioactive material 400 times stronger than the Hiroshima bomb into the air. Radiation is one of the more strange dangers on Earth. You can't see it, you can't smell it, and still, it can kill you in minutes. With that in mind, Chernobyl is known as one of the most radioactive places in the world. But here's a surprising fact. It's actually not as deadly as people think. Radiation decays over time. And today, radiation levels in the Chernobyl area vary. Some zones that are right next to Reactor 4 are still highly contaminated. But in many places, radiation levels are no worse than getting an X-ray. Considering that, Chernobyl will get a 4 out of 10 danger rating. Just don't spend the night there. And while in some places the danger is invisible, not all threats are so subtle. Welcome to the gates of hell. In the heart of the Karakum Desert, Turkmenistan, there is a place where the earth has been burning for over 50 years. A 70-meter wide crater filled with fire and poisonous gas. The temperatures at the center exceed 1000 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt some of the metals. And then there's methane gas that's constantly feeding the flames. But methane itself isn't inherently poisonous. The real risk is that it displaces oxygen, meaning too much exposure in a concentrated area can cause suffocation. So, how dangerous is it? Assuming you won't jump into the giant bowl of cereals, where the cereals are flames, the outer rim of the crater is actually safe to stand on. The heat is noticeable, but not extreme, and the methane level aren't high enough to be immediately dangerous. Despite its name, the Gates of Hell is actually a tourist attraction that will get a danger rating of 2 out of 10, considering there is still a risk to fall if you're stupid enough. And that brings us to our next destination. That is not only the highest place on Earth, but it also has one of the highest death counts. At 8,849 meters tall, Mount Everest isn't just the tallest mountain on Earth. It's one of the most brutal, unforgiving places on the planet. But while trying to recreate it, I ran into a problem. Minecraft's height limit. The world maxes out at 320 blocks, which isn't even remotely close to the true scale of Mount Everest. So I had to find a workaround. After some brief research, I decided to use JJ Thunder to the max. A data pack that expands world generation up to 2000 blocks high. Now, will that be a perfect 1-to-1 scale of Everest? Not quite, but I'd say it gives my recreation a much more accurate feel. With that settled, height wasn't the only issue. The mountain isn't just big, it's deadly. That's where Frostiful comes in. A mod that introduces realistic freezing mechanics to better capture the ambience. So now that I had the height and the freezing cold, it was time to see just how dangerous this place really is. And to do that, I feel obliged to talk about the death zone. The point above 8,000 meters, where the average temperature is about minus 60 degrees Celsius. And thanks to Frostiful, that means I wasn't just cold, I was dying. Combine that with winds that can reach speeds of up to 160 kilometers an hour, and you get one of the most difficult climbs a human can ever accomplish. Mount Everest is so high, so brutal, that most of the bodies up here never live. Around 340 climbers have lost their lives trying to reach the top, and because of the extreme cold, many of them are still perfectly preserved, becoming checkpoints for future climbers. Considering it won't actually kill you in seconds, unlike some other places, but it's still one of the most unforgiving climbs in the world, where a single mistake means death, I have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. So we've explored all these places, but how do they compare? On the lower end of the death scale, we have the Gates of Hell, with a measly 2 out of 10. Looks terrifying, but unless you fall in, it's just a big burning hole in the ground. And then, at the top of the list, we have the Mariana Trench, in which your only chance of survival is a top-of-the-line submarine. So there it is. Probably it's not such a surprise, but these places are quite dangerous and you shouldn't even think of exploring them. But I want to know, do you agree with the ratings? Or do you think some of these places deserve a higher or lower score? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, stay curious or something. I really haven't found my punchline yet. See ya!